In this video, I'm going to teach how to do frequency separation, which is an action that should already be installed on your computer. And we haven't used actions before, but what they are is basically a pre-recorded edit that does a sum of the work for you. With this action, you still have to do some selections and other things, but it makes it a lot easier. So first of all, we have to open the action window. We also need our layers window open, our tools window, and our options. Okay, so we're going to go to window. We're going to go to window and we're going to choose actions. Okay, so this is the actions window. It may open up in non-button mode, which looks like this. Okay. But either way, that is the action window, and we do want to get into button mode because it's easier to use. So if it looks like this and not the other screen, you're going to click this, and you're going to choose button mode. Okay, so we can record our own actions, we can buy them, or we can download them sometimes for free. And in the case of frequency separation, that is one that was downloaded for free from a company that makes it called Flurn. And you can also watch their full video about this action too, about building your own. So you can do the frequency separation on any of your photos that the skin needs retouching. I've chosen to do it on this one, but I'll also show you how you can run it on one where you've done clone stamping and or spot healing. It's going to make separate layers, so you just have to make sure that you keep everything separate for the required edits that I'm checking off. Okay, so first thing you have to do is pretty easy. You just click it. It's going to run. It's going to do some of its own editing over here, setting up some layers. This is telling you in the next box, which is going to be a Gaussian blur dialog, you're going to choose a radius that blurs skin texture. The radius will be different for each image. Okay, so you're going to click continue. So in this screen, this is the Gaussian blur, and this is a filter, by the way, that it's adding to the photo. You'll see it's doing it on a separate layer. In this window, we want to choose a blur that's going to not blur the whole photo. It's going to temporarily look like it's blurring, but we want to really pay attention to softening the skin, but without doing something like this where it's like a blob. That's not going to work. Okay, and again, it is different for each image, so you just have to play with it. This kind of reacts a little bit slowly, so don't just go crazy and then realize it's super blurry. Just do a little bit at a time and figure out where the best point is for your photo. Okay, so I'm happy there. I'm going to click OK. Okay, now another dialog box is going to come up, and this is saying done. Now just select areas of the LF layer, okay, which we're going to see in here. I'll explain in a minute, and use a Gaussian blur to smooth skin. Okay, so we're going to click continue. Now, this action was built by somebody who made these separate layers, and they also put it in a grouping here in the layers window in a folder. So to see the separate layers that have been created, you just have to click this symbol, this open folder symbol, and then we're going to make sure that we click on the LF layer. Okay, LF layer. So once we're on that layer, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to, number one, zoom in. Okay, and I want to work on smoothing her skin out, especially on her chin and jaw area. And to do that, I'm going to use a lasso tool. So a lasso tool is a selecting tool that allows you to select part of the image. And that's going to make it so the whole image isn't blurred with the Gaussian blur tool. It's just part of the photo. Okay, so the lasso tool is an L, and it's over here in the tool window. There are multiple tools here. We want just the regular lasso. Okay, these are better for other things, but in terms of selecting skin for what we're doing, just regular lasso. Okay, now the lasso does have options up here. The main one we need to worry about changing is the feather. So honestly, you just have to guess what the feather is, and I'm going to show you how to see what it's selecting. I'm just going to start with 20 and see. And that's going to be 20 pixels. Okay, so now what I want to do with this lasso is I want to select an area of the skin that I want to correct, like that. Okay, I need to see if this is good enough of a feather, which I'll show you what that means, by clicking my Q key, Q, like quack. And what Q stands for is quick selection. Okay, so that's showing me how much is it's blurring. and the red is what's not selected, so it's just in that patch. I'm gonna hit Q again. Okay, that's a little bit too much. One bummer thing about this, I can't just change the feather once it's put down. So I have to unselect, and the way to do that is select, deselect, or you can see the shortcut is Command D. Okay, then I have to change my feathers. So now I'm gonna go down to 15 because that was too much blurring around it. Actually, before I do that, let me show you what's not enough blurring. So I'm gonna choose one, which I know is wrong. And I'm going to do Q again. Okay, so see that jagged line? That's not enough feathering or enough blur on the edge. So I'm going to do Q again to get out of there. Command D to deselect. Okay, so now I'm going to guess 15. And then same thing, I'm going to select a patch of the skin with my mouse with this lasso tool. I'm going to click Q. And that's pretty good. So it's selecting this area, but it's soft on the edge so it won't be obvious. So then I'm going to click Q again. Okay, we're going to do multiple patches of skin, so I'll choose this one and I'll do the edit, then I'll choose like this one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that area. And then I'm going to go to the top of the screen and I'm going to do Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Okay, now we already did a Gaussian blur on this LF layer, but now we're applying it more strongly to certain patches of the skin. And again, we have to be on the LF layer when we do this. So we're going to increase this until that area of the skin looks smooth, but we want to be cautious about doing too much blurring because then we're going to get like a weird patch of skin that doesn't match the rest. Okay, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to click OK on this. Okay, and then I'm going to do Command D to deselect. That looks pretty good. I probably could have gone a little bit stronger. So if I wanted to back up, I could back up and then redo it. Okay, so I'm going to select the next patch of skin, and the way I'm selecting the patches of skin is I'm trying to group them by area, so I wouldn't want to do, for example, this with this. This is very pink and light, and this is dark, and if I blur those together, it's going to be pretty weird. So I'll do like her whole chin. And then again, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. It might be the same number. I may need to increase or decrease. So like that's too much blur. That's weird. That's not enough because it's not doing anything. Somewhere in between there. Stronger than that. Okay, and that's pretty good. Okay, so then I'm going to do Command D to deselect. Now I'm going to do this patch. And basically I'm just going to keep working. Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur until I get a smoothness that I think looks good. I could do her whole face. I do want to avoid areas like her eyes, her eyebrows, the creases on her nose, her lips, things like that. Another way to deselect, by the way, is just to click singly with the lasso. Okay, I'm going to try this patch one more time. Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then try getting a little bit softer in there. Too much. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, so Command D to deselect. Now I need to turn this whole group on and off to make sure that that's actually looking good. And you can see it's just smoothing out those areas. I'm not crazy about the way. I think I've done too much blur here, to be totally honest, but just to give you guys an idea. I can also decrease this. So if I do it and I'm like, that's way too strong, I can highlight the LF, and then up here in the layer window where it says opacity, I can bring that opacity down. That's a way, like, if I end up doing too much, I'm not stuck with it. So now I like that better. See, that's way less less obvious. Okay, one last thing on frequency separation. You can also, if you haven't already, done clone stamping and or spot healing, and that has to be done on the HF layer. So you can't do it on the original background anymore once you apply this action. So you go to the HF layer, I'll just try clone stamp, and I'm going to use the clone stamp just like I normally would. I can also try spot healing. So like, let's say I want to smooth out this right here. I'm going to do Option click. And rather than changing the tone, it just changes the texture. So it looks, sometimes it can look a little bit more realistic. Okay. So I'm sampling and then I'm clicking. And then I could also do it with the spot healing brush. Okay, so see how I'm cleaning that up. You can do this separately before you do the frequency separation. What I do need to see is this LF layer making a difference in the image. So if you turn the whole thing off and on, you'll see before and after. Okay, so real quick before we end, I just want you to see, like, this is one that I've already done. This one to her skin does not need any more retouching, but let's say it did. If I want to do a frequency separation on a image that already has these layers, I need to go to the very top layer before I click frequency separation. So highlight that top layer, then do frequency separation. So it's doing the same prompts for me. Click OK. Continue. Okay, and then open that folder. So you can leave all this stuff because then I can see your work. All your required edits could be done on one image. That's totally fine. Just make sure each layer or each group in the case of frequency separation does something when you turn it on and off. So like this one is currently not doing anything because I haven't actually applied the lasso. Okay, and you can see like this one is doing something, this one is doing something. Okay, that's it for frequency separation. Don't forget to save as Photoshop files. So for like this one, we're going to do a file save as, and we're going to make sure it goes in our Photoshop edited folder as a Photoshop with layers. I'll also review saving in the last video.